everybody. It's very exciting to be here with this theme tonight because it speaks very deeply to my heart. This book, Paul and Stephen, the way I see it is like there is life before and after Paul and Stephen for so many different reasons. So you have one way of looking at life, and then when you read this book, you have to revisit your thoughts, your values, everything, because it just shifts your perception. And it's done in such a poetic way that it really steals your heart. You just sob sometimes because it just touches you. And the quality of the historical points of reference in this book are totally on point with other historians that you can read about those times. Everything matches like a puzzle that really links together. So if you've never had a chance to read this book, don't miss this chance, because it will really, it's a balm to the heart in your great times and when life is not so good. Okay? So let's see here. I have to try this. Oh, it's already there. Okay. No, it's not. It's just here. Okay. Press here. Press here. It's not here. Oh, F5. That's right. He did tell me that. If I only listen. If I only listen. Okay. So I am not going to talk about the entire book because it's impossible. It's just 1 hour for us to do an amazing story with so many details. I've seen this book divided in chapters and sometimes just in paragraphs. And they can have a whole conversation in one paragraph. This book is so rich in so many things. But I am going to focus on one of the most amazing pieces of this book, which is the person that represents the forgiveness impersonated, new chances, new beginnings, enduring everything, which is Abigail. This woman, when I grow up, I want to be like her. It might take me 1,000 incarnations and 1,000 more, but when I grow up, I really want to be with her. She is amazing. And she teaches us a lot. So even though we're going to situate her with Paul and Stephen and their names from previous, we will not be talking about them. We'll mostly be talking about her. Let me just talk a little bit about Saul, which was Paul's name before he became Paul, right? He was from a Jewish family, but he was raised in the Roman Empire, so he had different privileges. So he grew up, and he comes from a family of weavers. So he had the trade of weave, and he was able to produce that. But as he got into schooling and he was able to study with more powerful communities, he learned the importance of their religion, which was, even though it was a religion, it didn't really have a lot of religiosity in it. It was almost more like a business, a power related, more so than moral value related. And he was fascinated by it. And he could see how he could progress, how he could become that top person with a lot of power. And his vision was right there. This is what I want to do. And every path, every step he took, he had that in the back of his mind. So I'm going to step on the stepping stones, And the stepping stones can be things that I'm going to do. It can be people. It can be ethical paths that I might throw away. It doesn't matter. I have this vision of becoming the top person. His vision was, when I finish my life, he didn't even think about reincarnation at that point. He was talking like, when I grow old, I want to be able to look back and look at my legacy that I leave back of power. I got there to the top. So his vision was really towards that kind of power. When he was still in this powerful place, he wasn't as powerful yet. He was on the road to being that powerful person. There was a family that had Abigail and her brother and her dad. Her brother was Jezeel, which became Stephen later, switching names. It's another story altogether. But this family had already some connection with the faith, the God inside them, more so than that power-related religion that was typical of the Romans then. And her brother, Abigail's brother, because of misunderstanding, his dad got mad, and so he got into a fight. He ended up burning a farm of somebody who was of a lot of power. So, with that, he ended up being thrown into prison. Because when you don't have power, it didn't matter if you were right or wrong. You weren't in power, so they do whatever works for them. And the son, to be kind to his dad, said, no, I did it. It wasn't my dad. I did it, just to save his dad from having to be going through all that hurting and being beaten up. In the end, they both got beaten up. They both got to go to prison. Actually, the three of them got to go to prison. But there, when it comes my superhero here, when we got there, and the three of them are thrown because, oh, you guys made this happen. You burned my farm, and now you're gonna go to prison. And as she's trying to understand what happened to her family, she remembers her mom, and she prays that God will provide. Things will get better. And she's trying very hard. And she starts to sing. And she sings with such emotion from her heart that the guy who was such a ugly spirit kind of guy, he just didn't have his frame of ugliness was so thick that nothing touched him. But her voice, her singing was so special that it cracked something in him. And it got him a little off his center, which wasn't a great center, but it was his center. When he gets out of that center, he doesn't know how to handle that emotion. So he says, get her to stop singing. Just make her go. Just release her. As long as she doesn't sing anymore, I'm good. So they let her go. This is for us to think about what happens when everything is looking so dark around us, and you look for that, what can I do? There wasn't really anything she could do. They were powerless at that point, but she found a faith connection that she had, and she pulled from it. And it was unheard of for somebody to be selected to be thrown into prison to come back. It never had happened before. But by her connecting to her faith, to her point of reference, which was God, she shifted the ways around, cracked something inside that guy. Not only she was able to leave and try and be able to start again and find her path, but she also, this is what sometimes we forget to see, she also helped crack some light into that armory. So we could be that person. Not only we are saving ourselves from the pain, from the hurt that we're going through when we choose that faithful guidance that we have, we are also, contaminating the environment with the good things. And we might, just by a second ripple effect here, get somebody who is super armed and cased into that ugliness to do maybe question themselves, maybe say, maybe I need to reflect a little bit more on this. So we cannot underestimate the power of doing good, choosing faith, choosing the right path, because that is contagious. So that's my first big proud moment of Abigail. And then she goes, she finds, she's hurting really bad because her dad is dead now, and her brother is never going to come back out of that situation, because nobody ever comes back out of that imprisonment that he goes to. So now she said, what do I do now? I don't know where to go. Then she goes visit with a couple of friends that were friends of her mom and dad, and they take her as a daughter because they had lost their son, and so she becomes their adopted daughter. And she lives a very modest life, but she hurts, but she believes that, things will happen the way it has to happen. We're doing this for a reason. And she's introduced later to this one guy who she falls in love at first sight. And his name was Saul. It's quite interesting that somebody who is so sensitive, so faith-related, so purposefully related to the believing love, believing what's right will prevail, to somebody who has such an armor going on. But he was that person, very powerful and inflexible when he was at his job, being the man of the law. But when you saw him at the intimacy of being with her, he was kind and he wanted to be with her. So she could see the person behind the frame. Again, we don't always choose to look at the person behind the armor. We have our armors, we all do, but sometimes we even, before we meet somebody, no, I can't stand the way she talks, the way she moves, the way she addresses me. Okay, we all, like when Huj was reading here, we are very good at looking out there. But how am I treating the others? And she was able to see beyond his frame, his hard frame. So she saw the sensitive guy behind it. So because we all have the good inside us, the potential, that seed is in there. Sometimes it takes a lot of, jackhammering around to clear all the path so we can find it, but we're all there. And she saw it in him. And he saw things like, you are so amazing that you make my life better. And this is the beauty of finding your soulmate, because you find things that you have aligned, that you could do together, and then you help me, and I help you, and we both grow together, and we find a better path. This is very romantic and very desirable, but how often does it actually happen this way? That everything goes smooth and, happy ending. So in their case, it's not going to be different either. He came to tell her that you make me better. And having a person like you who is so sensitive, so with good manners, with such a good posture, is going to make me look good so I can jump up to the next level at my job. Yes, he loved her. He did. But he still had his agenda of going to the top. She would be his support system to get there. And with that, she still said, okay, I'm good at that, and that's what I signed up to do. So he asked her to come and see. He's going to be doing, it's not something that you would think that somebody wants to be proud of to present to the city. He had scheduled somebody to die with throwing of stones, one of his prisoners. And when she gets there, she said, I don't think I want to see that. That's not going to make me feel good, And whatever this person did, can't you guys work it out some other ways? There must be a better way to address this than just throw stones. And maybe he has changed his ways. again, she's looking for the good in people. Maybe, and they said, no, there's nothing like that. It's scheduled, that's on schedule, he's gonna die and that's it. But I want you next to me so people can see you and I can introduce you to my people. She says, I'll go, but I don't wanna be there during the very, literal part of it. When she gets there, as they bring in the person, she recognized that actually that person is her brother. That she's like, wait a minute, that's my brother that I thought was never gonna even be seen again. So when she says she wants to be with him, and then Saul says, oh my gosh, now I'm in trouble, because now the woman that I love is not gonna love me anymore because I have decided that this guy is gonna die. It was my decision. Unless I do it and I say, hey, let's revisit this, let's see what happened, maybe he doesn't need to die. But he was so inflexible, he would never go back in his power. So he said, cost benefit here, right? Doing the right thing and doing the easier thing so I don't get off my pedestal. So that's what he chose. I'll stay up here. Because again, his focus was on getting to that top line. So he chooses, he says to himself, I'm gonna have to let her go because I'll never be able to live with her. She's never gonna forgive me for this. So he dies, and she's there to support him, to tell him, go in peace. You will be helped when you get there. And she, again, in her most hurtful time, she still believed that God was in control. And how many times we are in a situation when we see no ending. We feel like, okay, this is it. We can't go any lower. We can't move. And again, and then we give up. She did not. She did it gracefully. Not without pain. It was painful, but she chose the path of faith is still my guide. My God is still my guide. And so I'm going to go through this pain, believing that there is a purpose, there is a reason we'll prevail. And then Saul tells her, we're done because we're done. It's not going to work. She goes to her house and he goes his path. She falls ill and he doesn't even know that. When then he goes about his business, she goes about her business, right? She still thinks that he is a person who was that person that she would have been a person to be with, but he chose not to have her because his pride could not let him choose a different path. She passes. She gets sick and she passes. However, their commitment had been such a strong commitment before they came here, like all of us. Before we decided to come here, for this incarnation, to work our troubles, to try to take one little step forward, we made commitments to the ones around us. We set it probably on a table saying, let's figure out how we're going to do this. Okay, you help me get this way, I help you get that way, and we make that decision, we make those agreements. It's going to be tough, but I'm going to be there to support you. When you fall in here, I'll catch you. I got your back. This is how we make those plans before we come. And then we show up, and then things get a little hard. And then we say, no, let me just choose this path because I had made this decision. So we forget our commitments with the people in our lives. But just because we forgot doesn't mean that that other person forgot their commitment with us. And this is again when Abigail shows up strong one more time. You think that how can a person mess up 1,000,002 times and somebody still shows up to support, like a mom. When the kid messes up and it's, okay, this way, and the kid messes up, oh, this way again, over and over and over. She was the guidance that was supposed to help him. And they could have done it together when they were incarnated and progressed that way. But when he made his choices, she couldn't force him to do differently. She had to accept his choices and still be with him some other way, still supporting him, but from a different perspective. So he goes into, we know the part that we know more about Saul is when he sees that he is not on the right path, and he's persecuting all the people that follow Jesus, the people that believe in the thoughts of Jesus. And he finally is going to Damascus, and he loses his sight. You know, that's the part that we all know about. And when the only time when Jesus appears to him and he talks to him, that's when he understands that I've been messing up for too long. I'm just butchering it here, that part, because that's not what we're addressing today. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of Saul here, because we're really going to talk about Abigail. So he finally understands that his path is the same path as Jesus. So he's going to change his ways. And the support system, Gamaliel is a person who gave him that support. And Ananias is a guy who comes later on and really tells him, you got this. You've got this. The reason why you came with this job is because you are equipped to do it. I'm not saying it's easy, but you have what it takes to do it. And he chose not to do it until this time. Now, when he sees God telling him, you know, what do you want from me? And then he tells you, you got to show up. You got to do what you sign up to do. And he decides to change his ways, and he goes into the desert for 1,000 days. It just 3 years, I guess, he stays out, if I'm not mistaken, to just work his way to figure out how to get from being this armored person into being lighter, and to try to change his ways. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. So he invested in the work. But he always longed for Abigail. What if I had done it this way? The what if start cooking. Like us, when we mess up and we go the wrong route and we say, what if I had done it this way instead? It would have been so much easier. And especially when we look like 10 years or 20 years behind, we say, man, I messed up. I could have done it so much easier if I knew then what I know now. So that is actually a good thing. That means we are progressing and we're learning. We are more aware of who we are, and we've learned our patterns. We know where we tend to fall. So we are learning. So it's a good thing. We didn't do it then because we weren't ready then. We are ready now. And for certain things, we are ready now, but we're not quite ready for other stuff. So like I always want to say, life is like this. Come with me. I'll explain to you on the way there. Because you're always learning on the go. You can't really learn without experience. So after he comes back from being in the desert, he says, okay, now I'm stronger. I think I know my path. And he goes to talk to his dad about his changes. I'm a new man. I have these new ways of living, and I want to bring everybody with me. I want to show you all how this is a much better path. He suffered quite a bit to figure that out. But once he figures it out, he wants to invite. It's like all of us. When you learn something that you didn't know before that now makes you better, you want to invite other people. Try this. It worked for me. Oh, like when we come here and we talk about meditation. Why we talk about it? It's because, well, we've tried it and it worked for me. So we want to share with others something that works for us. So he wanted to share. He was excited to share. But he got really a pushback from his dad. No, I have my ways. and I'm going to stay where I am with that same mindset that you used to have a few years back. And he is devastated because his dad is not taking his approach. But this is how we do it. Somebody comes to you with new ways of doing, we are quick to say, nope, I'm good. I know how I function. No, I don't need to listen to you, none of that. Because if we listen and we question and we reflect on what this other person brings to us, we will have to put it to work. And sometimes, I just don't want to work. Let me just leave it as is so I don't have to invest and work on it. It's easier to just pretend you didn't hear about it, you didn't say anything to me, so I can stay status quo. Because when you do attend to what the person has to say and you actually reflect, that person might be bringing something to you that will help you move forward. But it is work. It's involving work here. So he's devastated. He just like, what now? Now that I thought that I had something that I could bring to people, so how can I now bring this that I found for myself to others if my own dad is not willing to listen to me? So I don't think I can do this. It's just going to be impossible. That's when she shows up. Oh my God, she shows up really nicely. And I did print this because I don't want to just say it. I want to read those. It's so important, so nicely done that I don't want to mislead you guys on the words. I want to read word for word when we get to the things that she says. So when he is to the floor, nowhere to go because he feels so defeated in his place, he has this visit from Stephen, which was the guy that died through his hands, and the sister, which was the love of his life. So the two of them show up, but they show up as that consoling support system that had signed up to be their support system from the very beginning. So then they're there. It's like you feel like, I got it now. They're covering me. They're helping me. So they're going to talk to him in a very brotherly love. He got killed by him, and he comes to him with this brotherly love. Because, yes?
But how did they show up?
In spirit. Yes, I guess I should state that. In his visions, he sees them coming, and he feels. The book talks about the coming and the air, the changing of the atmosphere. So the book, see, I'm butchering this here, gives all the details on how they come in his presence, and he feels lifted. And when he sees them, he wants to just hug and just go into desperation, clinginess. But they don't offer that. They offer that calm, understanding, brotherly love, like, we're here, and everything is okay. Giving him the peace of mind that everything will be okay. And he has a beautiful conversation with him, telling him, you've made mistakes, but you kept on trying, and we all make mistakes, and we all strive for better. And you are in a good place. You are working your journey, and it's okay. And then he disappears. I just summarize very simply here, but it's much nicer than what I just said. And then she stays. And his mind is like, what can I ask her? I have this million and two things that I want to talk about. And how do I begin to, he has all these questions. Most of his questions that first come to mind is about his spirituality. Because that's where he is right now. My dad didn't accept what I had to show. And how am I going to show the world this new ways of being more spiritual, more related to Jesus and his teachings and all that. So this is the first question that comes to mind. How do I go about this? So that's when I pick up my paper here and I read. Sal mentally arrayed a large number of questions. What could he do to acquire a perfect understanding of Christ's designs? He's thinking those thoughts before even saying it. And because she is connected with him without any words, right? Because they are spirituals who are linked together for a reason. She just answers with one simple word, love. And it just gives you chills. Woo. And then love answers Abigail spontaneously. But how could he proceed in order to go richer in his divine virtues? Jesus ordered us to love even our enemies. He realized, however, how difficult it would be to do just that. It was difficult to practice devotion without others' real comprehension. What could he do for his soul to reach such an elevated expression of effort in Jesus Christ? He's trying to say is, I am learning what it takes to be there, and I am doing my work here. But how do I transmit this to others? I tried with my dad and I didn't succeed. And then she answers with one word, work. And it's another chill just goes through your body. Work, exclaimed his beloved, smiling kindly. Abigail was right. It was necessary to work for inner progress. It was necessary to work for inner progress. It doesn't come easy. We have to put the effort. And he ardently desired to do so. The willingness to do that was in him. For this reason, he had isolated himself in the desert for more than 1,000 days. However, upon returning to the environment of collective effort, coming to where life really happens, right? When you go away to meditating, you're getting with yourself, calm and collected. But when you go back to the arena, the real life, that's when we tend to mess up. And when he goes back to the environment of collective effort, at the side of former friends, he had nourished blossoming hopes that soon turned into heartbreaking bewilderment, like what his dad had to tell him. What measures could he adopt against such destructive discouragement? Like when we have this desire to help or to do, and people say, it's too much work, don't do that, just don't invest too much time in this. I don't know why you do all this. People are quick to discourage you on the paths that they don't want to go. So if you don't go, makes them look good because they're choosing not to go. But it's very hard to do nothing when somebody around you chooses to go the extra mile. You feel a little uncomfortable. And sometimes it's best to say, don't go so I can stay where I am. So he says, what measures could he adopt against such destructive discouragement? She answers again, hope nonetheless. She said further, in a gesture of tender solitude, like someone who wished to clarify that the soul must be ready to attend to the divine plan in any circumstances, regardless of any personal whims. Ouch. See how she's my hero? She just goes there. You fall and you try 1,000,000 times. Try one more time. And we have to meet the other people where they are. We can't force them, but you still hope. Like that crack that she created in the governor that had sent her dad to prison, which was another guy who was so armed, but her music cracked him a little bit. Maybe he's going to have to come 1,000 more incarnations to crack a little more, but she pushed the first domino. She helped him a little bit. So this is how we keep on trying. We're not here to fix anybody. We have a lot of work already fixing our issues. We don't have time to fix anybody. But as we go about doing better ourselves, it's contagious, and people are watching, and your children, your parents, your siblings, your spouse, your friends, your co-workers, everybody is watching you do. They might choose to stay where they are status quo, which is fine, but they might choose to reflect on what they see. So we could actually be having a ripple effect on them. So let's keep on doing it. Hope, nonetheless. As he listened to her, Saul remembered that hope had always been with him in his most difficult days. He would know how to hope in the future with the blessings of the Most High. He would trust in his mercy. He would not disdain the opportunity for redemptive service. But what about other people? Everywhere, confusion flourished in their spirits. He, in fact, realized that overall agreement regarding the teachings of the Divine Master represented one of the most difficult tasks besetting the unfolding of the gospel. But more than that, people also seemed uninterested in the truth or enlightenment. People also seemed uninterested in the truth or enlightenment. This is what we have. It is what it is. Some people are not interested, and we cannot force it shoved down their throat. You gotta be interested. It doesn't work that way. This is the nature of evolving into a better self. We all have our path, and we all go at our pace. We don't walk backwards. That's the mercy of God. Doesn't let us walk backwards, but we might be stuck right here for a very long time by choice. But we do have the option of going. But there is a lot of disinterest in taking the journey. So he says, where was the freedom in Christ? Where was the endless hope that his love had brought to all humankind without excluding the children or their people? He agreed with Abigail that loving, working, and hoping were indispensable. But how was he to behave amongst such diverse forces? How do I perform? How do I behave? How was he to reconcile the grand lessons of the gospel with human indifference? This is the biggest question for him. How do I balance those? I know the power and the value of the gospel, and here is human indifference. How do I push those two together? Abigail squeezed his hands. Oh, see, the chills just come. His hands even more tenderly to show that she was saying goodbye, and emphasizes gently. I love the word gently here. And then the word that comes after is forgive. Then her shining figure seems to dissolve as if made from fragments of sunshine. Forgive, and she just leaves the forgiveness in the air. See how you guys are going to have to read this book. Enraptured by this marvelous revelation, Saul was now alone without knowing how to come to grips with his own wonderment. in that region, crowned with infinite brightness, the brightness of her presence. He had felt vibrations of mysterious beauty. From far away, the echoes of sublime sidereal harmonies continued to reach his ears, seemingly bringing messages of love originating on distant suns. Saul knelt and prayed. He thanked the Lord for the wonder of his blessings. Within moments, as if an imponderable power had returned to him to the earthly realm, he felt himself back on his improvised rustic bed among the rocks. Incapable of explaining the prodigious phenomenon, Saul of Tarsus gazed up at the heavens, unraptured. So this is the power of the commitment that we have before we come here. We have a lot of spirits that are dying to help us because they made a commitment with us before we came here. Some are still here with us, incarnated at the same time. It could be, again, those people close to you that you have good connections, or it could be somebody who already passed and is helping you from the spiritual world. But the fact is, because there was this connection already prepared, it is there, and nothing is going to break. If we choose the hard path, choose to stay status quo, choose not to make the effort, they are still trying. The people around us that are a little stubborn, are not trying hard enough, our job is to show up just a little more. Be that Abigail. Just see the person behind the armor just a little more, just one more chance, and keep cracking. See that light can get in. We're not going to force them to change, but we're going to show up. So maybe they can change that way at their pace. And even though we are still struggling out, we also have all this other help that comes to us from those that committed to our incarnation. So this is quite consoling to know that no matter how we mess up, there's always somebody watching over us and trying to help. There's tons of Abigails around us trying to help us. So if we only hold that path, hold that belief that it's inside us and that connection is still there. Aren't you in love with this woman? Just like, how can this be? So when reading this book again, I always have to read that 2-3 more times because she's such an example of living life through very hard moments, but still believing that pain is part of it. Suffering is optional. You can go through the pain, but the suffering is your choice. And that is the example that we can take from her.